Welcome back. As I stated last week, this is a new video series, or last episode. This is a new video series called Make It Mondays. And this one's actually being filmed first. So I'm going to do a little bit more explanation here than I did in the previous video. So Make It Mondays, instead of a finished project, I'm showing you how I did step by step. I will be going through more of the design process. They're going to be one-offs, or they will be for Project Linus. They're going to be a lot more mathy, a lot more how to alter stuff to fit, and a lot less here's how to do the stitches. So it's going to be a lot more of me talking to you like this than with the camera pointed down at my hands. So right now I am working on a sweater. I know this might not look like a sweater. I will take a picture of it and insert it in the video here. So what this is a wrap sweater that will be made out of this really pretty black yarn, which is part of the reason why I will not be doing all that many demos on how this is done. And this really pretty black yarn will be done in a really pretty lace stitch using the mostly white background behind me. So it is I've seen it listed as an acorn stitch, but it's a really pretty, nice, light stitch to make a cardigan out of. I personally don't like buttons down the front, therefore this is a wrap sweater rather than a traditional cardigan. But I also am not the size of the industry standards, either knitting or sewing. And for those of you who don't know, the measurement standards are different between the two. Within the knitting standards, depending on what part of my body we are trying to fit, I'm anything from an extra small to a large, and that's not fun. So I end up actually making this based off of body measurements and based off of how I want things to fit, rather than off of the industry standard size chart. Now, for those of you who might also be really far off from one of the standards, it's a really good idea to know how to do this. So in this case, because I'm going to show, again, I can't show you exactly what this looks like because it's black yarn. It's really hard to tell. But between the little eyelets, there it is 3 stitches per block and 6 rows per block. And that's just what the gauge is for it, or what the repeat is. So the full repeat is 6 by 12 because it flips between knit and purl. So it's kind of like the basket weave from a previous episode of What's on My Needles. So what I did when I was working this out was I figured out how far across I am at the shoulders. I'm going to the actual bones. So if you notice, this shirt doesn't actually fit quite right. And it's just, when the shirt was made, the measurements were not taken. So this is where the shoulder seam is on this shirt. This is where it should actually be. And across my back, I'm 17 inches, which in knitting is a size large. So I actually start with that being one of my main points. And the other main point is from the tip of my shoulder to my armpit. Because if that fits correctly, everything else will just fit a bit better. So I figured out how many stitches I would need, and then how many blocks that meant across my back for the armhole, because there's a little divot taken out there, and then to make my shoulder seam, and then how far from the inside of my neck, so the end of that shoulder seam, all the way down to my waist, and then down to the hem of where I want the sweater. This will be knit from the bottom up. And basically I'm going to be doing check-ins with you guys seeing the videos every other week. And once it looks once I can try it on, you'll see it on, and then I will be working the sleeves after that point. I have 10 balls of this yarn. I do not know for a fact that that's going to be enough yarn. I do not know if it's going to be too much, too little, no idea. Because the yarn was cheap, it was online, and it was the only amount you could buy was groups of 10. I know I don't need 20, and it was new to me yarn, so I didn't know how it would knit up, what its gauge would be, what its gauge in any stitch pattern would be. So I didn't want to get way too much, and so I landed on 10. If it means that the sleeves go down to my elbow, great. If it means that I get an extra little bag out of it, great, or a pair of socks or something. All of these are great options. If it means that it has to be a little cap sleeve sweater, that also works. So this drawing is actually just the body. I do tend to design sweaters to knit in one piece, or to have the body knit in one piece, so no side seams, which in general is just easier for me, because that way I don't have to remember what I did and then flip it for the other front, or to have to go through and match the front versus the back. But it does mean that I'll be starting at the bottom edge, knitting up a little bit, and then decreasing for the front edges, since they are it is crossed over, so that will actually end up on one side seam and that will end up at the other. And then when I get all the way up to where it's time to take the the underarm, I will pull those off to the side, and I will work up the front in one piece, the back in one piece, and the other front in one piece. And that's where a lot of ball economics will come in, of can I get this all out of one ball, or should I just use a new one? And then what isn't on here are the sleeves and the front band. So I'm hoping that I will have enough to do a Pursley shawl collar that will incorporate the ties for the back. So with a wrap sweater, you actually have to tie it in the back somehow. I'm hoping that can be part of the front trim, and that can go up around my neck and get slightly larger when it crosses what should be cleavage, and then go up and around so it just kind of folds over and then gets narrow again. And I'm hoping I can do that on a mistake rib. Right now, I don't know for sure, because I don't know how much yarn I'm going to have at the time, but I need to make that before I make the sleeves, so that I know I have enough for the sleeves, or I know how much I have for the sleeves, so I can make the two sleeves the same length. So that's my thought process. I will check back in after I've done a little bit of progress, and again, hopefully these will keep going every other week. I will show you bits and pieces as I go, but again, it's going to be a lot of talking. Please bear with me, and I hope to see you next week. Have a good, and now a word from our sponsor.